What is going on, guys and girls? How are you doing today? It's Roleplay here once again, and finally the time has come to show you guys my second build of the Metamorph Leaf, as this is the tanky guy. This is the Grandpa. This is the Herald of Agony Mana Guardian. You know, this is type of this build that you always wanted to play but just never had the currency and never have the guts to really even start this, because you know this is expensive. This requires investment. We all know that this is good, but it's really like hard to start even, because you know that's a long way to go, right, to get this far, to make it really good. But I specifically wanted to give it a more newbie approach, and I wanted to, even though I optimized the build quite far and made it very far in the gear, I've spent over 100x on the gear, but at the same time I really understood that the build can be done in a more a cheaper way. There's different options. It stretches quite far. It can run quite cheap and be still pretty good and effective, as well as it can be quite expensive and deal a lot of damage. So I wanted to make it more affordable for the more wider audience, guys, for you of course. So let's get going. Before we go further into the video, I would like to stop for a second and thank my Patreon supporters and Twitch subscribers. You guys are making a huge impact on my life and allow me to get going and continue creating content for all of you. Thank you so much. If you want to make it into the list and immortalize yourself on the internet, join Patreon to get sneak peeks and behind the scenes footage of my work. I'm always looking for feedback on my content, guys, in order to improve, so making sure you always leave comment, like or dislike. Your reaction is very important. And remember,
you are making a difference.
Speaking about the build as a whole, how it works, what it does. So you are playing the Guardian, which is effectively just a super tanky aura bot, and you attack with the poison and summon Herald of Agony, which is the Agony Crawler coming from the Herald of Agony Herald. And basically your Herald of Agony does all the job. It clears everything, it just hits everything, it kills everything, it clears everything, The other things like the specters and the golems here, and you are as well, you are just buffing the Herald, buffing the Crawler. So that's about it. Practically he does all the dirty job. Now, why Guardian is so popular for this type of build? For a couple of reasons. First of all, Guardian is kind of a very strong aura bot. He gets a very nice effectiveness of the auras. He can give onslaught. He can give a lot of quality of life to the minions, as well as he can be insanely tanky in the first place. He gets 50% of energy shield based on the reserved mana, and if you get a shit ton of mana, which I have is 12,000 mana, and imagine how much of the energy shield I get from there. Another thing is some combination of cool items that normal Guardian wears, such like the Memory Vault and Skin of the Loyal. Memory Vault gives you over 12,000 armor based on the amount of reserved mana you get, as well as Skin of the Loyal just doubles this amount, and you get over 20,000 flat armor, which then gets multiplied by the increase, and the result you get 40,000 armor on this insane character, as well as almost 30,000 energy shield. Imagine that, res capped, 30,000 energy shield, 40,000 armor. I mean, what kind of things can kill you? Not many, actually. This makes this build is one of the tankiest characters in the entire fucking game. You can tank all the Guardians, you can tank all the bosses, you can stand in the Sirus meteors, eating them like nothing, like peanuts. So, this is my boss killer in this league, and I'm providing the Sirus service with this character. So, this combination makes it one of the tankiest characters in the game. Definitely tankiest than probably anything I've ever played, even tankier than the Max Block Gladiator, which occasionally died to something, but this character died only a handful of times, only to super strong elemental attacks and mostly to being stun locked. by a shit ton of shotgunning spells that happen on the Cortex fight. When Cortex summons a shit ton of ads which start shooting spells at you, and you get perma-stun. There's always a run around that as too. There's also this kind of the stun blocking immunity on the Guardian Ascendancy. So it's very flexible character. If you wish more damage, you go like more damage. If you wish more tankiness, you go more tankiness. If you wish more something like quality of life, like I have the 3 types of charges on me, which is the Endurance, Frenzy, and Power charges, which I share with my allies. I can also get this, so it's very flexible, very tanky, and also a very powerful character. The power of the Herald of Agony in this build grows directly with the levels of the gem itself, with the level of the Herald, and this is probably where the build starts to become really expensive, because it's quite easy to get like 30,000 energy shield and be insanely tanky. It's very easy on this build, but doing damage, this is where the real investment begins. So this is where I need to get like +2 Convoking Wands, +2 Skin of the Loyal. This is where investment starts, guys, and I'll get into this type of in-depth information pretty soon in the pathway building section of the video. Here we are in the pathway building, guys, and this is kind of my exact character, even though I tune it up a little more to give you guys an idea what should be like 98. I'm 97 at this point, so yeah, that's about it. I also kind of tuned down a little bit on the chest piece because it was way too expensive, and the idea behind this guide is to give you 3 different pathway buildings. One is the cheap variant, which is kind of an under 10 exalts, which is considered a very cheap character for this type of build. The next is this character, which is about like 10 to 50, 10 to 100 exalts, which sounds like crazy, right? But 100x is actually kind of a mediocre price for this build. And the last absolutely end game, ridiculous gear, insane damage variation will be like over a mirror of currency invested with insane amount of damage on the Herald. This is the absolute top tier. If you have the currency, if you know how to get it, if you get lucky on the drop, for example, you drop something very expensive like triple mirror watch's eye, you can sell it and juice it up to the absolutely ridiculous things. But let's start with this thing, which is very close to my character. This is like exactly my character, just a little juiced down to give it a little more cheap approach. So we start as the Templar over here and taking all this strength nodes because we're stacking strength 2 ES with the Shaper's Touch. That's why we're taking strength. And overall, I would prioritize as the Mana Guardian a couple of things. The first, you need to prioritize mana. Next comes intelligence. Then I think comes a kind of energy shield, and the last is strength. Strength is also very important because we'll be getting ES based on strength. But I would say that intelligence, mana, and flat ES is still more priority. So starting as the Templar over here, getting this. Getting Rider's Decree, going down, taking Dynamo, taking this juicy Alliance Spirits, which is a great new node. Now we're going, I think I would personally go on the right side of the tree and get a couple of this, getting the Curse Convocation, Written in Blood, getting the Utmost Intellect, very nice. Going up, taking the Insightfulness, getting this Arcane's Dominion, getting the Arcane Focus, getting Arcane Wheel, getting all this juice with Prodigal Perfection, Mystic Bulwark. This is where we insert our Healthy Mind, which transforms life into mana, which is this nodes over here and this over here. Then practically just going to the left side of the tree, this is where we're getting our reduced reservation. Sovereignty is very important. I guess more mana with Arcane Capacitor, as well as a little ES and all rest with the Faith and Steel. This is a little juicy node. Rider's Army gives just a little more minion damage and a regeneration to them, which is kind of a little more useful for this Spectre because, you know, Herald of Agony, Agony Crawler is immortal. He doesn't care. He doesn't die, he doesn't take any damage, but Spectres can be good, and Golems need regeneration too. Well, the tree itself, I would say, is pretty much like mana and intellect, as well as some strength there on the tree. Nothing spectacular overall. For the ascendancy, definitely the first one is Radiant Faith, the second is Radiant Crusade, the third is Unwavering Crusade, and the last is Harmony of Purpose. Some people take a Time of Need, which kind of regenerates you a lot and clears your curses and ailments every 5 seconds, which can be useful in some really nasty situations, but to be honest, I think it's a waste of time. Another useful thing is the Bastion of Hope, which also is very good. The best thing is that it prevents you from permanently being stunned and kind of chain stunned and you die. This is what happened on a couple of my Cortex encounters. This is what I actually was chain stunned and died. But for the 99% of the game, to be honest, I think it's a wasted potential because, I mean, 50,000 armor, guys, what kind of block you need on top of that? You practically just never drop down like 25,000 ES, whatever, like how many enemies are there, don't care. You just never, you don't really need to block anything at all. The only reason why you need block is because of this, which is Vakevaru Omatua Spirit Shield. If you have blocked recently, you and nearby allies regenerate 5% of life per second. This is very strong, so you actually need to block. But getting like, to the max block, I think it's a bit excessive, and I would definitely prioritize more quality of life like Harmony of Purpose or the Unwavering Crusade for the damage. I think this is way better. So the tree, like I said, it's mostly mana, intelligence, and some reduced reservation. This is kind of a basic tree which I use, and I have 28,000 energy shield, 50,000 armor, and I'm rest capped as well. Speaking about the leveling, I would say that it's a bit of a problem. I do not recommend this build as the starting build of the league because, the gear that you need to make this build work kind of very expensive at the beginning of the league, and you will just not get it if you're not a very good player. I seriously doubt you'll get there to a point where you can buy this early on. But as a second build, as a third build, I would definitely recommend this. This is because you will get enough currency to get the leveling gear, to get the proper gear like Skin of the Loyal and the Memory Vault at least, and the Convoking ones would probably be cheaper for you as well. So yes, I would not recommend this as a starting build, although it can be done, but not recommended because the items are too expensive and it's quite expensive to min max, so it will take like an enormous amount of time and you'll probably get bored before you get to this amount of damage that is necessary to have. Alright, so let's get to the gear really quick. This is the Von, which is +2 Von, and then the cheaper variant you get like +1 instead of +2 and the most important thing here is practically just a trigger spell when you use a skill, which will be Spirit Offering, Desecrate, and the Curse, which is Projectile Weakness. The offhand is the Vakava Tuki Matua Spirit Shield, which gives us +3 to mini gems. This is where our specters will be, as well as increase ES, increase effect of auras on you, and increase effect of auras on Yumina. This is very important. This is like a GG shield every Monarch Guardian wears for a reason, as well as regeneration, of course. Memory Vault with a ton of mana, a ton of energy shield, as well as gain armor equal to your reserve mana, and you'll be reserving literally like 100% of your mana. As you can see, I have like all my mana reserved. That's why you have like over 12,000 armor, which is further increased on the tree, as well as further increased by the Rumi's concoction as well. So you get like a shit ton of armor from this thing, guys. The body armor are a couple of things, and this is the properly colored Skin of the Loyal. The important thing you need to know about this chest is proper colors, because the chest, the socket colors cannot be modified in any way on this chest. Even with the Varici on the bench, you can't do anything about the colors. So you need to get 3 greens, 2 reds, and 1 blue. That's extremely important for the right colors for the maximum damage. The The weird thing about this is because everyone knows these cards are worthy, and the price on this chest is about 4 exiles, like 3 to 4 exiles. You can snag it cheaper if you do a live search, but overall 3 to 4 exiles, that's the price. The gloves are Shaper Touch with the corruption to AoE, or the Aura Gems, which gives you +2 to discipline. And why we have Shaper Touch is because ES per strength, guys. This is very important. The boots are boots with mana, strength, or energy shield with resistance, as well as the cannot be frozen mod, which you need to craft in the boots eventually. You know, being frozen on this build is like a biggest pain in the ass, which you can even have. So this is kind of a mandatory to have on the boots, guys. So you will have to get this, otherwise you will just be frozen in Delph or somewhere else and you just die. The amulet is the Astromantis. Top tier Astromantis with the utmost might with the utmost might anointment, because it gives us increased strength, which gives us increased ES based on the Shaper's Touch gloves. The rings are pretty flexible, just pure ES, intelligence, mana, resistance, fastest out of ES recharge. Cerulean ring with increased mana is probably the best ever top tier base, because it gives you mana, gives you armor, you can get resistance, you can get strength, intelligence, whatever you get. Intelligence, strength, ES, guys, mana, all priorities. The belt is the heavy belt, and these things are very popular in this league. They are like super expensive. This is pretty much close to perfect belt. It says strength. This is the heavy belt base strength. Increased attributes, which is qualitated by the catalyst as well. ES, mana, armor, and energy shield, and some resistance. If you have resistance, this is a perfect belt. If you don't have resistance, try to find one resistance, because resistance are very important. The flask are pretty much Quicksilver, Rumi's Concussion for extra block, Basalt for extra phys reduction, actually not that important, Portal Faith, and Wise Oak. Portal Faith is for the damage, and Wise Oak is actually for the damage reduction. It does nothing to the actual damage, but it reduces 10% damage taken for each element for which your uncapped is lowest, and this just helps with elemental damage protection. That's about it. The jewels are 3 Grand Spectrums, which are about like 40 to 30 chaos each. 1 Watcher's Eye, which max ES as max ES based on Clarity. We're buying Clarity level 1 as well, not level 1, but depends, like max level if you wish, just to get this. And this Watcher's Eye is extremely expensive this league, but the price dropping down already, so you can get it cheaper now. And 1 Healthy Mind, like I said over here, very important to convert all this life into mana. The other jewel is mostly just to fill in more tankiness with max ES, max mana, and some resistance, because resistances will be a little problematic. You'll need pretty sick rings to get these resistances filled up. So I think that's about it, guys. And the pantheons are Arakali and Tukahama. Arakali for pure recovery of the ES, and Tukahama for regeneration, because we actually take Zealot's Oath, and life regeneration is transformed into ES instead. That's about it. Now let's talk about the skills, and this is the actual setup that I use. Herald of Agony, 6 Link, Herald of Agony, minion damage, damage for life, because he never dies. Awaken, Vicious Proj, Pierce, and Empower. That's all you need. If you don't have Empower, you use Maim instead. On the shield we have Spectres with Withering Touch and Fitting Frenzy, and speaking about the Spectres, actually we'll be using Stone Skin Flares, and these guys are pretty insane. They have enormous amount of life, of the biggest amount in the game, and 75 res. They are practically unkillable, have enormous amount of, look at this fucking 200,000 life. There's fucking insanity. They just never die. They don't need minion life, they don't need mid shield. They're just doing fine on their own. They have Fitting Frenzy, Withering Touch to get the Wither stacks, guys. That's very important, because they will be stacking Withering Touch on the enemies and the bosses and everything else. So try to get them. They can be found in the Primeval Fortress, which is deep in the Delph, as well as the Maligaros Sanctum as you level up. but if you can't find them, try to ask some necromancer, some guardian. He can definitely come and desecrate to a hideout and get the corpses for you, so you can actually use them infinitely since then. So that's it. On the falling trigger in the weapon, we have Proj Weakness, Desecrator, Spirit Offering. This shit procs every time you actually do anything. This is the Virulence proc, and this is we'll be using to actually summon the Herald of Agony, Agony Crawl, and this is Ball Lightning with lesser poison, fast decaying, and phase run. Phase run is just mobility because I fucking hate get stuck in the enemy, so I use just phase run to run for this shit. And lesser poison is a bit tricky. So what's the difference between the poison support and the lesser poison? Lesser poison gives you less chance to poison, but it gives you flat added chaos, guys. In order to summon the Herald of Agony, you need to poison, but lightning damage cannot poison. So if you attach poison support to the ball lightning, you will do nothing, because you're not dealing poison, you're not dealing physical damage, you're not dealing chaos, you're doing nothing. So the only way to actually get rid of poison support is to do lesser poison, even though it does a little less chance to poison, but overstacking with poison on top is useless. You will the Herald of Agony itself gives you 40% chance to poison, so when you pop something once, you get 80% chance to poison with just lesser poison support. So poison support itself will be completely wasted. I do not recommend using both. Use one. This is falling boots, which I have is a Wall Molten Shell on custom damage taken with Golem, because he dies all the fucking time. So whenever he dies, he does automatically rest summon, and minion life is kind of what keeping him alive. The reason why we need a Golem is because he actually beefs up a Herald a little bit along with the Spectres, but at the same time he is the fifth kind of an ally that is required to get the onslaught. You see, when there's at least 5 nearby allies, you and your nearby allies have onslaught. Whenever you have 3 Spectres, 1 Golem, and you, this is where you consider 5, and this is where everyone gets onslaught and increased movement and attack speed. This is very fucking important. Keep that in mind. And on this one is the gloves. This is where the discipline is, and clarity and all that shit. Just pure discipline, convocation, dash, and clarity. This is what I use personally for the mobility and extra ES. That's about it for the skills, guys. Now that you've seen this version, which is kind of, I would say, a medium-sized investment build, which is definitely expensive, but it's not like over expensive. It's not over like 100x. This has an expensive helmet enchant, which is 25x, 4x, 1x, 2x, 20x probably. So that's like 50 to 100x, which I consider a medium investment for this. But how about we take a look at the cheaper variant? And this is the cheap variation. As you can see, the damage is way lower, but at the same time it's kind of enough for Moscon. It just takes like more time to kill things. But the difference between this and that is quite a lot in terms of the price. This is a +1 Von, and this costs like an Exalt or 2 Exalts tops. As well as this Memory Vault is doesn't have the Herald of Agony enchantment. This is very cheap. This is kind of not 25x. It's like couple of Exalts max. This is the body armor, which costs 100 chaos actually. It gives +1 to level of socketed support gems, a shit ton of intelligence. As you can see, like 26,000 ES still, which is pretty nice. And it's not Skin of the Loyal, so it doesn't give a lot of damage to the Herald, which is the case of Skin of the Loyal. Why is it so good? But it still keep you pretty much tanky, like 26,000 ES. Most things will never kill you. The rest of the gear is absolutely identical, except there is no Watcher's Eye, which is like -30x easy. So this thing is about under 10 Exalts actually, which is very nice, and I think it's considered like a very cheap build variation, which I specifically wanted, guys, to show you that it is possible. Now let's take a look at the very super crazy, like overtuned, insane amount of damage, super expensive variation of the Herald of Agony. This is level 100 build for those who really want to push, really want min-max. Now, what's the difference with this and what you've seen before? First of all, this uses a lot of expensive gear, like +2 Skin of the Loyal, 60 to 70x at least. Memory Vault with the Herald of Agony reduced reservation, at least 60-70 exiles. +2 Insane Wand, very expensive, like 30 to 40 exiles at least. Shaper's Touch with +4 gems to the Discipline. Well, that's pretty hard to even estimate. I think 6 to 10, 20 exiles maybe. Boots are pretty crazy too, very nice. Circle of Nostalgia, 5 to 20 exiles. This has increased intelligence, as you can see, which boosts your energy shield, and this is a super juiced up build. Still, it does a shit ton of damage, like 3 times more than my variation, I would say. My base gear, but it says it still have like almost 30,000, yeah, so it's very tanky. To make this far, you need a lot of currency, but if you get there, this is what you need to aim for. If you get lucky, drop a mirror. Watch his eye with Discipline and Clarity. Grand Spectrum with reduced reservation, like Healthy Mind with reduced reservation. For one reason, because this build uses Awaken Generosity as well as Hatred to boost the Herald of Agony even more. So this definitely is a super beefed up, super expensive build, guys. But if you wanna really kind of have the currency for that, if you really like get lucky, if you really want to overinvest, if you feel like you have the guts to do that, this is definitely the build you want to go for. This is the top tier DPS you can get out of the variation, as well as the tankiness. You know, a lot of builds can get like even more damage. You can get like minion damage, like here. You can get here, all this shit. Like, you can get a lot of minion damage there. But will it be tanky? Will you have like 30,000? Yes, obviously not. It's quite easy to get more damage out of the minions, but it's not easy to stay alive and do like AFK all content, guys. This build balances around that while still doing like the best of two worlds, so keep this in mind. Right, guys, that's about the build. I really hope you liked it. That's a pretty interesting stretchable build, which I really like myself, because there's always something to work towards. It's not like you can cap out early on, or just kind of meet like a wall of DPS or meet a wall of ES. There's always something to improve in this build. That's why I like it so much. It's for those people who really would like to progress all the time, really like to work towards the goals, to beef up things, to min-max. This is kind of a build that is one of the most perfect builds for that, which I perfectly like and recommend to anyone, guys. If you're good with the currency, you can really invest a lot in this build. It's a ton of fun. It's pretty nice. It's pretty decent clear speed once you get all the juice, like phase run and flask up running. It's pretty nice. It's tanky. It can do all bosses and shit. It's a pretty insane build, I would say. I'm very happy that I actually made it possible to play it, and I actually made it quite far with this. I also actually leveled almost to 97 without any soft breaches and shit, without anything bullshit like rotations. This is my highest level character up to date in the whole Path of Exile game, simply because I died so very few times, guys, on this character, because it's just so friggin' good. So I can definitely recommend it for hardcore. If you know what you're doing, definitely play it out. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.